A day after Wednesday's deadly attack, the alleged gunman's father, Colin Gray, is in custody on second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter charges.
From Mr. Gray knowingly allowing his son to possess a weapon.
CBS News has learned investigators believe the AR-style rifle used in the Appalachia High School shooting, the one that appears in this video, was bought by the suspect's father as a gift for his son in December last year. Both assured deputies the suspect had made no online threats about a school shooting.
I've been sick since I heard the call yesterday morning.
Janice Mangum is the sheriff of neighboring Jackson County. Her department talked to the suspect and his father in May 2023 after the FBI passed on an anonymous tip about threats against a middle school posted on the social media platform Discord. According to the incident report, the threats were posted by an account set up with an email address linked to the teen, and its username referred to the 2012 Sandy Hook gunman. In an interview with investigators, the alleged gunman's father said he owned hunting rifles and that the then 13-year-old was allowed to use them when supervised, but does not have unfettered access to them. The suspect told the officer he hadn't used Discord in months and denied making any threats. "I got to take you at your word, and I hope you're being honest with me," the officer said, adding, "I'm not saying you're lying, but it's a serious thing," the teen responded. "It's not unusual for people to lie to the police," the deputy said. The suspect's dad responded, "He's familiar, and I am too." With conflicting information about who the account truly belonged to, there was not probable cause for an arrest.
Knowing what the deputies knew then, was this a missed opportunity?
I don't think it was a missed opportunity. No, I investigated. He looked into it. He went into the Discord. He followed up with several, IP addresses, checking them. And I think he did all he could do with what he had at that time.
Both the Grays, father and son, potentially face years in the criminal justice system. Nate, they leave behind a community that's shattered.
Yep, bye-bye. See you in Attica. It's just, wow, this is amazing. So a lot of people are going to remember the Crumblies. Remember the Crumblies that bought Ethan the gun? They got 10 to 15 years each. And this is not the first time that parents have been charged with manslaughter. The new charge in this one is cruelty to children. I feel like Miss Mangum actually did miss an opportunity, but just won't say so. And you know why I feel that way? I feel that way because the Discord channel was linked to Colt Gray. Colt. They named their son after a gun. Okay, but it was linked to Colt Gray. Somehow they missed that clue. Now, the handle that Colt, the kid that's named after a gun, is the Discord channel. His handle was Cyrillic. And what's Cyrillic? It's Russian. You know how the letters don't look the same in the Cyrillic alphabet as they do in our alphabet? Well, in Cyrillic, this kid managed to teach himself a little something about the Russian alphabet, and his handle was Lanza, as in Adam Lanza. In fact, his hair color was also that creepy Adam Lanza's hair color too. So he was this Adam Lanza. So he was the Sandy Hook shooter. For those who can't keep track of the 195 school shootings that we've had since Sandy Hook, you know that almost 400,000 students in our schools have been affected by. So right now, the choice is so stark between the candidates that are running for president of the United States on this very issue. It's not just on economic issues, not just on who would do a better job if, God forbid, we had another pandemic, who would tell you to shoot bleach and who wouldn't. You know what I'm saying? The difference between the rules of the road for protecting children who have a right to go to school without fear of being shot versus people who say, you've got to get over it. Get over it.
It's just horrible to see that happening. That's just horrible. So surprising to see it here. But we have to get over it. We have to move forward.
Yeah, no, I don't lie. I don't need to. I don't need to lie. This man is a world heavyweight champion liar. Number one. Number two, he has absolutely no value that he can identify in places on your children or your children's safety or anything decent. He talks about carnage, right? He talks about what he's going to do to heal the world. Heal the world. So you want to see something hysterical? I don't know. Hold on one second. I might get a copyright for this. I don't know. First of all, so it illustrates what we're up against with AI just a little. There's a little bit. But number two, it's the only decent ending to Trump the movie. And I know that there's The Apprentice, but there's a Kickstarter for The Apprentice to release that movie. I'm not kidding. So it turns out Donald Trump sued them and threatened all the theater owners, like the groups, that if you play this, then he's going to sue you. And why? Because there's a scene in the movie, apparently, I haven't seen it. Jeremy Strong from Succession plays Roy Cohen. So this is about the early Donald Trump years, and it's about Donald Trump when he first started in real estate and was just a little baby boy, little orange baby, and he didn't have a backbone. He didn't have the ability to tell a story. So none of that was developed yet. How Roy Cohen actually tutored him and took him under his flabby wing created Trump the Monster. So the only decent conclusion for that movie, which can't get shown in theaters because Trump is threatening all the theater owners with defamation lawsuits, because in that movie, apparently, there's a scene where Donald Trump, and this was taken from the deposition in his divorce case between him and Ivana Trump. Ivana, you remember her, right? So he buried her in the golf course. He buried her on his, oh my God, the mother of his beloved Ivanka is buried on his golf course. Oh, okay. Maybe it's revenge for Eric. I don't know. Who knows what's going on? But it's like the only decent ending to the story of Trump, and it would be this. I don't know who made this video, and that's the problem I'm having right now. It's a really good video, and I'm gonna show it to you. Screw it, I don't care. Here we go.
Told me to go to Peru and do ayahuasca with his shaman. I thought it'd help with the election, give me that edge. But what happened next, I wasn't ready. I saw it all, greed, lies, my father's lack of love, my mother's coldness. Demons, dark entities, everything I'd buried came rushing out. It was brutal and life-changing. So I left politics to heal myself. I gave away most of my possessions and I went to India. I did every therapy, somatic experiencing, breathwork, and parts work. You wouldn't believe the things I tried. I purged everything I thought made me great. Slowly, the suffering started to fade. I started sharing what I'd learned. I created something bigger, holding space for others. And I led with love. They say I'm the greatest shaman now. It's a new kind of winning, one where I lead others to peace.
Josh Fourrier.
So while other states were banning books from their schools, we were banishing hunger from ours. We also protected reproductive freedom because in Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. And even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. And that includes IVF and fertility treatments. And this is personal for Gwen and I. If you've never experienced the hell that is infertility, I guarantee you know somebody who has. And I can remember praying each night for a phone call. the pit in your stomach when the phone had rang, and the absolute agony when we heard the treatments hadn't worked. It took Gwen and I years, but we had access to fertility treatments. And when our daughter was born, we named her Hope. Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you. I'm letting you in on how we started a family because this is a big part about what this election is about. Freedom. When Republicans use the word freedom, they mean that the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. Corporations, free to pollute your air and water. And banks, free to take advantage of customers. But when we Democrats talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. Freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. And yeah, your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's the freedom that we all talk about. The freedom that they talk about is the freedom to kill your kids, the freedom, just look at their Christmas cards. Jesus is the reason for the season, while they're all posing on the front of their cards with big AR-style guns. So hey, let's gift long guns to our 14-year-olds who we know are suffering from some sort of mental illness that makes them relate to school shooters. What could go wrong there? That's what they think freedom means. Now, when you look deeper into what this person's family was like, oh boy, the family was a mess. I mean, they were a mess. So the mom apparently was arrested driving with methamphetamines, fentanyl, and muscle relaxers. And that's a shame because according to her LinkedIn profile, yes, I went there. According to her LinkedIn profile, she's got an MBA. So this is a highly educated woman who was in what appears to be, by all accounts, an abusive marriage with a husband who thought it was appropriate to give his 13-year-old son a Christmas present of an AR-style weapon. Not only that, knowing the police, the FBI, and the neighboring county sheriff's department had all been to his house to talk to his son about threats to shoot up his school that he made on Discord. And the dad says, well, I don't know what Discord is. I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. My son never has access to guns unsupervised. Hey, let's give him a Jesus is the reason for seizing guns. Knowing what he knew about the visit by law enforcement officials, that's plural, that's why he's going to jail too. That's why the father was arraigned this morning in the same courtroom as the son. That's why. You know how many lives could have been saved if we had red flag laws? But Georgia doesn't have one. Nope. And you know why? Because Republicans run Georgia, and Republicans like Brian Kemp and the Georgia legislature, they view that any law at all that would bar or create some hurdle for a 14-year-old to get a long gun as a Christmas gift, they view that as an attack on the Second Amendment. I swear to God. And so you've got a clear contrast between the administration's incoming that you choose to be the incoming when you vote on November 5th. So on November 5th, you can elect the Trumps of the world who say openly the shooting he was talking about there that I played on that little snippet, that real quick clip, that was the first day of school. That happened in Iowa. That was the very first day of school. And boom, school shooting. But only one person was shot. I think 7 were wounded or injured, but only one person was dead. I shouldn't say shot. Only one person was dead. And Trump was like, yeah, well, you know what? You got to get over it.
We'll have to get over it.
You got to it's horrible to see that happening. It's horrible.
We'll have to get over it.
With white people, that's what he means. Got to get over it. Yeah. So he meant here in Iowa where everybody's white, because Donald Trump thinks of shootings. He doesn't think of school shootings. He doesn't think of Georgia or Iowa. He doesn't think of Minnesota. He thinks of gang violence. He thinks because this is where he goes to defend leaving the America gun owners or whatever new one that replaced the NRA, where they're stealing from the NRA all this tax-free money. All of this 501c3 tax money was being stolen and used for like luxury items, for large ass lifestyles, like living large. But Donald Trump doesn't associate that stealing with white people or that gun violence with white people. That's why he said in Iowa, I'm surprised to see it here. I'm surprised to see it here. He also said,
In my second term, we will roll back every Biden attack on the Second Amendment. The attacks are fast and furious, starting the minute that Crooked Joe shuffles his way out of the White House.
This is what they consider attacks, background checks, or red flag laws, or laws that say you shouldn't be allowed or you shouldn't regulate judgment. This dad knew what he knew. He knew what he knew about his son, and his whole family knew what they knew about him because his grandma and his aunt were all interviewed since this happened. And they said this kid was begging. Colt, the one they named after the gun, was begging for mental health care. This kid knew something was wrong. He was begging his father. He was begging his mother. He was begging his grandmother. He was begging his aunts, please get me some mental health care. I'm not doing well. I'm thinking about school shootings. I know I'm not ready to do it, but I'm thinking about it.
Hey, Donald.
Governor Chris Sununu called Trump crazy, but he's...
All your friends, all the people that have worked with you.
He's a very, very flawed man.
They all think you're nuts.
The man cannot tell the truth, but he combines it with being a narcissist.
He's a populist, authoritarian narcissist.
Donald Trump is not fit to be president of the United States.
Our country can't be a therapy session for a troubled man like
Governor Sununu called Trump crazy and said if he was in a mental institution, he wouldn't get out.
Turn over the nuclear codes of the United States to an erratic individual.
Serious character issues.
He constantly engages in reckless conduct.
He goes and he starts to say these wacky things.
But he's not fit to be president of the United States.
A consummate narcissist.
A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever
Donald
seen.
Trump's literally insane. And I think people are scared of him, and they should be scared of him.
Wholly unfit to be president of the United States in every way you can think of.
Learn more at psychopac.org. Anti-Psychopath PAC Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I love that. You know who that is? That's Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, George Conway, who started this thing called Anti-Psychopath. It's unbelievable. And now Kamala Harris today has reported in various news sources, has raised in the past month of August $341 million. $341 million. When we first saw her announce that she was running for president and that money started rolling in, it was pouring in. Remember, we were like, oh my God, look at this. And it was a lot of small, multiple recurring donations from small donors, like $25 donations. But all the big money was released, like Disney money. All that big Democratic money was released because they were holding it pending Joe Biden, realizing that he wasn't going to be able to be effective with regard to winning the White House and Senate and bringing coattails into the race. Now, I will say people who predict the presidential races predicted that Joe Biden would win. People with extraordinary records predicting who wins presidential elections, like Alan Lippman. You know who that is, right? I'm sure everybody listening who's a regular knows who Alan Lippman is. He is a distinguished professor of American history at an American university. Alan Lippman's jam is predicting who wins the presidential election. He has gotten every single solitary presidential election correct based on not the rhetoric, not the campaigns, not the money, not anything that happens on TV or last minute. We're reopening the email investigation crap. No, he gets it right by applying his 13 keys that unlock the door to the White House. His 13 keys have actually been deployed again. In this particular election, Alan Lichtman only missed one election. You could actually say Alan Lichtman was right. The Supreme Court got it wrong because he called the 2000 election for Al Gore. The Supreme Court called the 2000 election based on nothing but a feeling that we were running out of time and you should just stop counting the votes and America is going through some stuff and we're going to end it now. And they just gave it to George Bush. You could say Alan Lichtman got them all right. The Supreme Court got one wrong. God help us if they do it again. But that's where we are today. Kamala Harris has a war chest of over $600 million now, which means what is that money for? Well, that money is to buy ads on football games. It's to buy ads on, let's say, the Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs game. Do you see that? And it's a great game to open the season. So that was close, yes? So you would say it was literally decided by half a toe. Exactly. And Trump can't toe the line either. Just saying. That's as close as the presidential race is going to be. That game the other night was like a premonition of what's to come in politics. Today was completely psychotic. Did you see him at all the other day? I know what they showed on TV because I told you I watched this really strange channel. The channel I watched, just in case people were like, what the hell are you talking about? The channel I watch is free. It's a free channel. It's on Sling TV. It's really inexpensive. I don't even pay for it at home. I watch the free news that's on Sling TV. Not all for the news, obviously. I have, the main channels I watch, in the room, the bedroom and living room, like CNN, MSNBC, Fox, all of it. I watch those in the main rooms. But in the little reaches of my house, like in the bathroom, I have a little 13-inch TV and I refuse to pay for the extra streaming in that room. I just don't want to do it. So anyway, I have the free Sling on that TV in there. So anyway, on Sling, there's a free news channel called Fox News Now. It's whatever in the world they can find that's happening live. That's it. That's the whole criteria. Whatever's happening live, they will take it and they will put it on that channel. And there's a couple hosts, and it's like a Foxy News version of C-SPAN, if you know what I mean. C-SPAN will cover whatever's going on live in Congress, whatever's going on live in the Senate. Then C-SPAN 3 does all the hearings whenever there are hearings. Now, Congress is on vacation still to this moment, so there's nothing to watch there. I'm watching this, and they had Donald Trump today. They filed the appeal for the E. Jean Carroll case today. And so that's all that happened is lawyers who were entitled to do so appealed the $5 million verdict in the E. Jean Carroll main case. Carroll 2, it was called, right? And so they're filing this appeal. I don't know if you understand this completely, because when you hear appeal, I think some people think that everything's being looked at, the testimony, the evidence, all that. No, the only fact of evidence testimony in any case, whether it be civil or criminal, is the jury. That's it. The courts never, ever, ever review the evidence. They review whether or not the judge allowed evidence in properly. It's all about the procedure. So it's not Trump's decided that he was going to stand in front of Trump Tower today. Remember, he didn't even go to the E. Jean Carroll trial. He didn't even appear there. They put in no defense. None whatsoever. They rested. They called no witnesses. They called nobody that would say anything to counter. Nothing.
Josh Fourrier.
So they had, after the prosecution, the plaintiff made her case and presented witnesses, presented outcry evidence, meaning other people who had experienced unwanted touching. I don't even want to use the words that they used to describe what he had done to them, but you know what happened, right? So when they rested, it was Donald Trump's legal team's turn to put a case to discredit them or put on a case with evidence, to show that he couldn't have been anywhere near her or whatever. They failed to do any of that. They didn't present any case. There was no defense of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was never in the courtroom. He didn't even attend the trial. And now he's blaming his lawyers for advising them not to attend the trial. He said that they sent a message to the jury that he did something. I mean, it's so bizarre. So knowing that the appeal only looks at whether or not evidence was admitted properly or whether or not the jury instructions were according to the law and corresponded with what you can tell a jury and what you can't tell a jury, and the opening arguments and closing arguments, that kind of thing, nothing to do with facts, nothing to do with evidence, nothing except whether or not things were admitted. Donald Trump, apparently, for all the times he's been in court, either doesn't know this or wants you not to know that. You remember, it was a $5 million verdict for the unwanted act in the Bergdorf-Goodman dressing room. And then he defamed her. He repeatedly defamed her after he was warned to shut up about it and just take it like a man, which he can't do because he's a little baby, a little orange baby. Then today he goes out in front of Trump Tower and it's like some elderly golfer just wanders around saying crazy crap all day, causing himself another round at another defamation trial. I swear to God, it's a constant circus.
But she made up a story. It fabricated 100% that I attacked her at Bergdorf Goodman. It's very interesting. I don't think they were allowed to use this either. Her favorite show is Law and Order. Whether it's true or not, it's horrible. And in this case, it's so false. It's a made-up, fabricated story by somebody, I think, initially just looking to promote a book. And when they called me, I denied the story. I got sued essentially for defamation because I'm denying a story where I'm right. I should be suing her for defamation.
Hey, Donald, why didn't you tell it to the jury? Why didn't you show up and present this evidence to a jury or these claims to a jury? Why didn't you get up on the stand, take an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and say that crazy crap there? Why didn't you do that? Because the jury was unanimous in finding that you did do the thing that she accused you of in the dressing room in Bergdorf Goodman's. It's just so bizarre. It's so bizarre because he doesn't understand. The more he talks about E. Jean Carroll, the more she's going to take him into court. And it's like people who are doing news coverage on this were like, wait a minute, did he just defame her yet again?
We just heard Trump, by my count, at least 3 times say he doesn't even know E. Jean Carroll and that her story is a lie. But he has already lost in court for doing that very thing, for denying her story, because the jury found him liable for that assault and for defaming her in the past by denying it. So could he have just subjected himself to another defamation case here?
I mean, it's certainly possible if E. Jean Carroll and her attorney were listening, Diane. The former president certainly came close to the line, if not went over it, and repeating the very defamation of E. Jean Carroll for which he was held liable and ordered to pay $5 million, and that he's now appealing. So there's no small amount of irony that he's repeating some of the very same words that the jury found were defamatory.
Yeah, so let's just trust him with the nuclear codes because he's so smart. He's just such a genius, okay? Listen, it is the higher of irony. We're in ironic times. I am telling you, we really are. We're in this crazy, crazy ass period of American history. The Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. Well, we are cursed. Is there no one around him with his best interest in mind? Did you see the lawyer standing next to him? Did you see who that lawyer was? Did you notice? I didn't. But who was that lawyer? Elena Hoba. Of course it was. The one who loses every case. He has gone through everybody's law license. There is just his imagination. That's all that's left now. That's it. I mean, it is so unbelievable and so frightening how crazy he is, how he's just rambling on and on. And, it's really disgusting. The reason why this wasn't really covered the way the press conference would be covered is because he called the press this morning and he said he was going to have a press conference. So everybody is insane except for him, right? He's the only sane person. I mean, it's just unbearable almost. People don't want to cover it anymore. They'll give him a minute and they'll let him go until he starts, making these election fraud claims, and then they have to dump out of it. They have to dump out of it because it's already been decided by the courts. It's a lie to air any of these claims. They can't do it anymore. So they dump out of it. But then the end of the New York Economic Forum, he did take questions. A question from the head of the group called Girls Who Code. And it's a group that teaches young girls who are interested in computer science how to code so they can start earning their way through college and whatever they want to do. Well, they asked him a question about what he's going to do to make childcare less of a burden because the cost of childcare is more than rent for a lot of people in this country. And his answer was just such... it was like jambalaya. I don't even know what you would call it. It was just mumble crap, which is what Rick Wilson calls it, but with the F word.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country.
Oh my God, I can't. I can't do it. I'm telling you, it is word jambalaya. This man just pointed at words in the dictionary and took them and threw them out there, this poor woman, because he has no idea who pays for childcare, how much childcare costs, and what to do about helping the American family afford childcare, which sometimes is as much as rent. Sometimes it's more than rent. Sometimes it's more than you make when you leave the house to go to work. This has been an age-old problem since I was a kid. I mean, he doesn't have any earthly idea about any of the economic issues that are seriously pressing down on the American family. The forgotten guy, the one he cares about, whatever. All he knows to say is my numbers are bigger than your numbers. And, childcare is childcare. It's childcare. I want to say it. I want to stay like nobody's ever seen before. It's another thing he will. I mean, it's just stuff that comes out of his face. None of it makes any sense.
Your kid goes to school and comes home a few days later with an operation. The school decides what's going to happen with your child. And many of these childs 15 years later say, what the hell happened? Who did this to me?
I never understood wind. I know windmills very much. I've studied it better than anybody. I know it's very expensive. They're noisy. They kill the birds. You want to see a bird graveyard? You just go. Take a look. A bird graveyard? Go under a windmill someday. You'll see more birds than you've ever seen ever in your life.
Windmills are not killing a lot of birds. There is no such thing as post-birth or 9-month abortion. If a baby is born and you kill it, that's called infanticide. It's murder. You understand that, right? In every single state, it's murder. There are no 6 states that allow murder of newborns. It is just not true. What is he talking about? Transgender kids go to school and then they come home with operations? What the hell is he talking about? And the people that are listening to him are just sitting there and nodding, agreeing with it. It's unbelievable. People actually believe that kids go off to school and they come home a different gender. But try to convince them that their kid could go off to school and come home dead. Oh, no, well, I can't talk about that. Second Amendment. But that actually happens. That just happened. And what do they want to do about that? What do they want to do? Well, let's listen to J.D. Vance. They really need to understand what Project 2025 is because Donald Trump is ripping. And J.D. Vance is sticking to the script. J.D. Vance is telling everybody, if your kid comes home dead from school, well, that's just a fact of life. It's a part of life. It's not a fact of life he wants to deal with. No, it's a fact of life he wants you to live with.
First of all, what happened in Georgia is just an awful tragedy. And I know we've got a lot of parents and a lot of grandparents in this room. I mean, I cannot imagine, little kids so excited to go back to school. God love them. And they're at their first week back from the summer, and an absolute barbarian decides to open fire and take their lives and also a
He's
couple
14
teachers.
years old.
We got to think about these people. If you're the praying type, and I know I am, we got to hold them up in prayer. We got to be hoping for the best for this incredible community, because no parent should have to deal with this. No child should have to deal with this. And yes, after holding these folks up in prayer and giving them our sympathies, because that's what people deserve in a time of tragedy, then we have to think about how to make this less common. Now look, the Kamala Harris answer to this is to take law-abiding American citizens' guns away from them. That is what Kamala Harris wants to do. But we have to ask ourselves, we actually have been able to run an experiment on this, because you've got some states with very strict gun laws, and you've got some states that don't have strict gun laws at all. And the states with strict gun laws, they have a lot of school shootings. And the states without strict gun laws, some of them have school shootings too. So clearly strict gun laws is not the thing that is going to solve this problem. What is going to solve this problem, and I really do believe this, is, look, I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools so that a person who walks through the front door We've got to bolster security so that if a psycho wants to walk through the front door and kill a bunch of children, they're not able to. And again, as a parent, do I want my kids' school to have additional security? No, of course I don't. I don't want my kids to go to school in a place where they feel like you've got to have additional security, but that is increasingly the reality that we live in. And a bunch of my colleagues in the Senate, we actually worked on legislation that would give schools more resources to bolster their security, because if these psychos are going to have to go after our kids, we've got to be prepared for it. We don't have to like the reality that we live in, but it is the reality that we live in, and we got to deal with it.
It's just a fact of life, everybody. It's the reality we live in. You just have to accept it. You just have to understand it. You just have to make schools a lot like prisons. Harden them, put guards in there. I don't know, random searches of bodily cavities. What is he suggesting? But they will not say anything about background checks, universal background checks. They won't say anything about red flag laws, which would have prevented this one. Just saying. Just saying, because I told you some of the details here. You had an aunt and you had a grandma that knew this kid was begging for mental health care services and knew that the kid was given a gun for Christmas and thought that was a terrible situation. But there were no laws broken in Georgia because there are no gun laws. There are no gun laws. There's only 21 states that have gun laws in them. And that means there's a majority of states that don't. And it doesn't have to be that way, JD. But you know what a solution for childcare is? So the grandparents could have invoked the red flag law and kept this murder from happening. But that's just a fact of life. Oh well, too bad. There are no red flag laws, but grandparents are supposed to do what? Babysit the kids? I mean, his solution to the difficult problems in a modern America that a modern family encounters is it's a fact of life that you could send your kid off to school and they could show up dead, and grandma should take care of the kids. You realize grandma's also working at Safeway, right? You understand grandma's doing checkout at Kroger's, right? You understand that? Oh my God. It's an amazing brain fart they have. Honestly, they are not interested in you at all. They are not interested in your children. They are not interested in life. They are not interested in liberty. I mean, they want to harden schools until they look like prisons. These school shooter drills are literally giving kids PTSD. And you know what their solution is for that? So now they're saying, well, we need to make the shooter drills more age appropriate. We need to do that. So instead of telling them that there's a scary man outside, he's got a gun, you need to go in the closet, turn off the lights, and shh, don't say anything, we'll tell them it's a bear. We'll tell them it's an animal so they don't freak out about their fellow mankind that they share the planet with.
How will we lower the cost of daycare? One of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more, or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare.
It's just a fact of life. Grandma is working too. Grandma is very busy selling art at the flea market, and Grandpa's very busy inventing things. Grandma's now working at Albertsons at the checkout. I mean, what is wrong with J.D. Vance and Donald Trump? What is wrong with them? It's just without any care or consideration for what we really have to face each and every day in our ordinary lives. And why? Well, maybe because they're the top 1%. They have no clue how we do it. In fact, you know what they do every single day? And I'm 100% sure about this. They get up every morning and they thank God they are not us because they don't know how we do it. They couldn't possibly do our lives. They couldn't possibly figure it out. They couldn't possibly bear the idea that they actually had to get up at 6 a.m, go take a shower, get themselves into some kind of workout, go to work on their feet, God forbid, or, put their back into it for 8 hours a day, maybe more, not get paid for any overtime or have to fight for something, for some kind of overtime, then pick up your kid from daycare, then go home, then cook dinner, a nice healthy dinner, and maybe you have to stop at the supermarket because you didn't defrost or you forgot to turn the slow cooker on. You got to stop at the supermarket, then you go home, then you make the dinner, then you have to serve the dinner, then you have to sit there after the dinner, you have to do the dishes, got to do the homework, and then maybe you get to watch the fourth quarter of the Ravens game. As close as our presidential election is going to be, the Ravens didn't ask for the courts to get involved. That is sportsmanship. Get up at 6 a.m. and do it all over again. They don't know how we do it. Donald Trump is over there tweeting. Remember, he was sitting on his toilet, his gold-ass toilet, tweeting at 4 a.m. Why? Because he didn't have to be anywhere. And he was the president. He just didn't feel like it was an important enough job to get up early and do. Now, J.D. Vance, with his Yale law degree and his lawyer wife, living, the big life in Silicon Valley, pretending he's from Ohio now. He's just an everyman Appalachian dude who understands everything I just said. That's why he's suggesting that grandma and grandpa do the babysitting while you go out and do the work. That they're free every single day, that they just don't like you or don't want to take care of another set of kids or whatever. He goes through that stupid mindset about why families aren't raising all the kids while other family members go out. I mean, it's sick. It's just very twisted. Dare I say weird. But pretty sure if you're in a violent marriage, the one that he says is a fact of life, right? And just remember all those stories are real, okay? The story of Colt Gray and his father and mother, Marcy Gray, is the story that J.D. Vance is denying exists. He's saying that, and he should know better because his mom sold pills. His mom was a pill mill lady, and J.D. Vance knows all about it. All about it. But Marcy Gray, who had an MBA, put herself all the way through school, was living in a violent marriage. A violent marriage, and it's just a fact of life. Just a fact of life that this little boy, 14 years old, begging for mental health care, nobody will hear him or get it. Well, his grandparents heard him. His grandparents started to talk to the father, and they told him, don't give him a gun. You're not the mother. I'm the father. I'll give him a gun if I want to get it, okay? And J.D. Vance is literally denying that there's a need for mental health care in this country, that there's a need for our fathers to not gift guns to their 14-year-old children. So he's pretending that if grandma and grandpa would just babysit, then everything would be fine. Why do we have to pay for anything? We don't have to pay for anything. And that's just what Donald Trump was saying too. He has no policy for daycare. He has no policy for pre-K. He has no policy for children's health insurance. He has no policy for anything that affects working Americans. Harris does.
Under my plan, more than 100 million Americans will get a tax cut, and we will do this by restoring 2 tax cuts designed to help middle-class and working Americans. The Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. Through which millions of Americans with children got to keep more of their hard-earned income. We know this works and has a direct impact on so many issues, including child poverty. We know it works. So as president, I'll not only restore that tax cut, but expand it. We will provide $6,000 in tax relief to families during the first year of a child's life.
I think we all learned the hard way when Donald Trump was president and there was a supply chain bust, how expensive baby formula was. Well, I guess J.D. Vance wants you to stay in a violent marriage, ignore your kid's plea for mental health care, and breastfeed. That's his answer. For everything that's going on in this country, that's right. Stay home and suck it up, Buttercup.